I am just so thrilled to be joined on stage by someone who has already been given an introduction. In a room like this really needs no introduction. On the 1st of September was appointed Global CEO of Accenture Song. We are all her guests here. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we're here to talk about trust, creativity, the consumer in the age of generative AI.
Yeah. Those are a lot of topics.
There's a lot going on in that, all kinds of angles we can get into.
Yes.
Before we dive in, I just cannot resist asking, how does it feel to be in the hot seat, to take over from David Droga, who, of course, we all know very well. Not personally, we know his work very well. You know him personally.
Absolutely.
How does it feel to be driving that bus now?
Yeah.
It's a big old bus.
You know, it is a big bus, and I will tell you, I'm elated. I could not be more excited. I think we all wish for the opportunity to be able to, the saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and David Droga is a giant that I am so glad that I have had the opportunity to work for and work with. And now I still get to partner with him in his vice chair role for Accenture. So it's really, really amazing, the vision that was set for Accenture Song and some of the amazing things we've been able to do with really, really, really phenomenal and I would say legendary clients. And so the future is bright. So I'm excited.
Perfect. Now, trust, creativity, the consumer.
Yeah.
I thought we'd start off talking a little bit about brands and trust. Mm-hmm. We can segue into talking about creativity and AI.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure we'd all love to hear a little bit more about your leadership approach and where you think, the direction of travel is across the next 5 years for Song. So let's start with trust.
Yeah.
We know that we're amid a huge disruption with AI.
We are.
Times are tumultuous, and we'll come to that later on as well. What are the big challenges you see, and what are the big changes when it comes to brand building and being a trusted brand? And how are clients stepping to you now with those kinds of concerns?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've been on a journey, I would say, over the past 5 to 7 years, truly, where brands have had to actually get clear on, do they speak up? Do they not? Who am I as a brand? What do I stand for? Is this relevant to me? Is it, if it's relevant to my customers and consumers, does that mean it's relevant to my brand? And they've had to actually, whether formally or informally, establish criteria of how they're going to show up, where they're going to show up, and how are they going to communicate with their consumers, which, brands weren't required to do that in the same way as they were before. There have been plenty of studies of essentially saying that over the past 5 years, actually, employees and consumers look for companies to be sort of their I would say their moral or integrity, or where should the North Star be, which is a responsibility that companies didn't have before. And so what that means, I think, the saying, to much is given, much is expected. And I actually think that we have a responsibility as like brand builders, as well as really thinking about how do we want to help shape the future. A big component of that is building trust directly with your consumers. And trust starts with consistency. It starts with consistency. I think one of the things that happens is in the world where everything is shifting, it feels like the ground beneath us is changing every single day, every hour. It almost feels like every minute there's new news, there's new information, there's new technology, there's new challenges as well as opportunities. And so as that's moving really quickly, as a brand, what do you stand for every single day? What are your consumers going to get consistently every single day? How are you going to communicate when you make the wrong step? When a shift happens that you miss? Trust is built on consistency, as well as, I would say, clarity on where you're going to play versus not. Sometimes what happens when we think about brand building is, there's this language sometimes around, give the customer what they want. There's all this language around chase the customer. And sometimes the customer is going to lead you in the wrong direction, because that was just a feeling, that was just a moment, and they're going to change. So you have to really make sure that your organization and the product you provide stays really consistent and really clear.
I feel like we went through a big, yes, absolutely. And please feel free to applaud whenever you wish. I feel like there was a big moment a few years ago where brands were really encouraged to take a point of view, and take a point of view on issues and be very engaged in the world.
Yeah.
And the world has changed to a certain extent since then, and we've seen some very memorable examples of that going wrong.
Yeah.
How are you navigating that conversation with brands now? I imagine clients are asking you, should we take a point of view? Do we be engaged? Do we be political? Is that what a brand is now?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? I mean, I guess consistency, you're saying, is a big part of the answer.
Yeah. So, and it's good. This is going to sound maybe like a very typical answer, but in the sense of, I actually believe that you should have criteria that you're really consistently going through every single time, because, I have definitely had the opportunity to help guide really big brands through when they should say yes versus no, and what they should think about. And, I will tell you, I really believe it goes down to, what is the mission of your company? That is where you have to start. Because sometimes I think, sometimes brands want to speak out in something that I'm not sure they have the trust from their consumers to speak about. It's really interesting. We're in this time that I would say of a lot of change, but really, truly also a lot of opportunity. And what I mean by that, it used to be that, you would go to the store, you would go to the pharmacy for one thing, and you just wanted the pharmacy to provide one thing. And, all of a sudden, the convenience store started happening in a different way, where you would go and you'd also buy a bottle of water, and you would also buy other products. And, in some convenience stores, you see that they also sell hats, and they also sell, umbrellas. And there was this expansion of what they were able to provide. And that was based off of the relationship with the customer. What you see with other companies now is in the financial services industry, you're seeing that there are banks that are, in some cases, opening up coffee shops for you to come into their store, which is really just a bank. You also see financial service companies offering advice and perspectives in spaces that they never did before, that aren't actually about banking, but they are about information that you needed to know. One example that you see is that you're all of a sudden seeing that the brands are saying, it's not just about the ad that I give you, the product that I give you, but it's also about the experience that I provide for you, because it all has to be connected and it has to be harmonized in the right way. It's not always about, I think sometimes we use this language, especially in our industry, around you need to give a singular experience end to end. I actually don't believe that. I actually believe you need to give the experience that is right for that moment, and it has to fit with everything else that you do. So, I do think that we're in this really shift of, it's not just about this creative moment. It's not just about a viral moment. It's not just about, I made an amazing brand. It's actually about, what's your mission and how does that carry through all of the experiences that you want your customer or consumer to have.
I want to segue into another huge topic, which is AI and its intersection with creativity, which we've heard a lot about on this stage already. Let's stay, though, with one foot in brand building for a moment. I mean, we had in the 2010s, I guess, a huge wave of disruption when it came to the way brands manifest in the world. Mm-hmm. And that disruption was social.
Yeah.
Right? Like Twitter, Instagram. Suddenly everyone can talk about your brand online.
Yeah.
We all know that moment so well. Like if you're old enough to have lived through it, right? Most of us are. We helped clients through that moment. How is AI changing the way brands show up and manifest in the world now. Like, for example, a lot of discovery now is people going to a large language model. Like, like what washing powder should I buy?
Absolutely.
So how are clients thinking through that? How are you thinking through that?
So, we have never had a more educated and miseducated consumer group, ever. Like, we never have, because you never were in a position before where you can literally ask your favorite model. And I think everyone has a favorite model. Everyone has their one that's good, that's their go-to. There never was a time where you could say, hey, tell me all the brands and tell me, I normally am like, what's the best brand for the cheapest price? I always like, a little bit of a deal.
Yeah.
And so what is that? And like, I also can include things about me. I would love for my product. I love the color matte black. And I can literally get a recommendation and then go into the store and say, I want it for this price. I'm looking for this style, and I know where to go. That's really, really informed. So now we're in this really interesting position where you're having customers come in who are like, I know what I want. I really know what I want, and I'm informed in a way that I've never been informed before. In the same way, not all of that information is 100% accurate. So what that also means is that at times your customer might understand something that's not actually 100% true about your brand. Or it might be something that was actually of the past, and you've actually shifted the way in which you operate. So what that means is we have to make sure that as brands and companies, you're actually really using AI to really gain the insights of how your customer is evolving and how your customer may shift and how they may actually shift over time. Because if you just answer the challenges of today, you will not be ready for what's going to happen tomorrow. You just won't. And so it has to be longer than just, I'm just going to answer for the now. I'm just going to answer for the now. Because I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's changing by the minute. And so that's where I think we should really be embracing AI as a tool, not just knowing that our consumers are smarter and maybe a little less smart than ever before, but also making sure that we're using it to understand them in a different way and serve some of their challenges they may have in a different way.
Now, one of the big disruptions that AI presents to Accenture Song and to its clients is that it produces creative outputs, right? It can write, it can make pictures, it can make videos now.
I would say it produces output.
Right, it produces output.
Output, yes, yes.
How, and there are those who think that makes the work of Accenture Song more difficult, less valuable, because AI can do this now.
Yeah.
How are you thinking through that? What challenges do you think AI presents to the organization, and how are you talking that through with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing I would say is AI absolutely automates tasks. It completely does that. AI does not automate imagination. It does not automate, I would argue, courage. It does not automate empathy. It does not automate human ingenuity, but it does automate tasks. And what it's going to do, especially in the creative space, it's going to take what was probably just okay, and it's going to make it good. It's going to make it good. And what we're going to start to see is a level of consistent good. But to make something great has always been about human ingenuity. It has always been about the thing that stuck outside of the pattern. It was the thing that was least expected. Great, excellent work, it's still going to be about great, excellent work. And so what's great is that the good work is going to be democratized, which I think is also somewhat exciting. But no brand is going to want to look the same, just like everyone else. I mean, I think that's one of the things we see today. When you look at different social platforms, you run through it and you're like, why does everyone have the same trend? Why did I think this moment that was so individual to me is really common? across the board. And in some ways, I think that has brought us closer together. In some ways, I think it's brought us further apart. But I actually believe that the brands who want to be first, who want to have a distinctive relationship with their customers, they are going to want to make sure that they have humans tied to their AI. Now, I will say one of the things that I think is really important is we all tend to be nostalgic for what was. We love to romanticize these moments. And there's some things that are actually I'm okay with AI taking, and I never have to touch again. One example that I share often is I never want to go back to the time where you had to print out a map and drive and read the map while you're going on a road trip. I never want to relive that again at all. I appreciate now that I have technology that allows me to be on a call, maybe eat food, maybe put my hair up in a ponytail while also driving, while also looking for my glasses. Well, that may not be the safest approach. I'm so glad I now have the capability to do that. And technology provided that. And so I also believe that there are things about the process today that we never enjoy doing, that were sort of frustrating, that you would have to key in every single detail from a campaign perspective, and someone would have to manually check it versus actually having technology scan it, or actually thinking about the fact that you want maybe 700 iterations of something, but that would potentially take 2 months. And now you can do that in a day or in hours. That's exciting, because do you know what's so exciting about that? Is now I get to focus on really amazing, creative, excellent, distinguishable work in a way that maybe I didn't have time to do before. So our work is going to shift, absolutely. But the possibility of what we're going to be able to do next, we haven't even realized yet.
Is it a challenge because you're going into organizations, helping them embrace this technology and do that in a fruitful way?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Accenture Song is a huge, complex organization of its own that has to navigate all of this.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that internally? Is there resistance among some of the creatives to embracing AI and new ways of working, and how do you broach that conversation? Because the way you do it, I guess, informs the way you then step out into the world and help others do it.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. And what's really interesting is I would say I've actually been, and I'm constantly pleasantly surprised by how much our creatives are actually embracing technology. They're often asking for more access to different tools and different ideas. I mean, it is a testament to the fact that our goal at Accenture Song is to actually attract people who want to build the future, individuals who want to shape the future, individuals who are courageous and are not afraid to say, I'm going to try it first. I'm going to help make the world better. Those are the type of people we attract. And so what's really, really great is I actually see that they're trying to find out, how do we figure it out first? And, one thing that happens is we actually, test it on ourselves first before we go to our clients to say, hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't, this is what we have to shift and change. And, there's a reality of it is a different, it's a culture shift. Because if you always did something one way, you have to get used to doing it differently. I will share with you, I remember when designers were moving from, I would say, the sketching to 2D CAD. And I remember the conversations that were happening during that moment. And it was a conversation of oh, you're not a real designer unless you sketch. That is the only way you are true to who you are, And I remember being part of those conversations. I remember being part of conversations. Now I feel as if people are going to be like, how old are you? But I remember people are going to being part of conversations where essentially you were talking, people would be like, no one would ever shop on their phone. That small screen, no one's ever going to do purchasing from their phone. That will never happen. Maybe just small things, but they'll never buy clothes or big items. More than 50% of purchases today happen on on customers' phones. That is significantly different than where we were before, and it felt impossible. And I will tell you, the people, the designers, the creatives, the engineers who rejected what the future were bringing, they are not relevant today. And so Accenture Song is a place that I mentioned before, like we attract the individuals who want to build, shape, and be a part of the future.
Now, yes, absolutely. I want to close out by talking to you about leadership. Obviously, no one personifies this intersection of creativity and technology like David Droga. You worked with him so closely for so many years. Talk to us about what you learned from him, but I'm also, so two halves to this question, what you learned from David, but you're also taking over the organization at a time that is undeniably, in all kinds of ways, tumultuous.
Yeah.
And how do you see, and in ways that perhaps he didn't have to deal with, how do you see the journey through the next 5 years? What are the kind of strategic priorities you see coming down the track?
Yeah. So, I will tell you, I have loved having the opportunity to work really closely with David Droga. And, everyone talks about David as, oh, he's an amazing creative. Oh, what he built with Song was so amazing. And I would say, yes, David is an amazing creative. But the way I look at David is like a brand builder. He builds. That is what he also creates. And that is where we are very kindred spirits, because I am as well. And I will tell you, David believes in leading. What he will talk about is care. He always talks about, you have to make sure that you care. And I will tell you, one of the things that you will always hear me talk about is what is the culture that we are creating so that our individuals can operate with courage and operate with compassion. That matters. And when we talk about leading in a time of significant change, one of the things that is really, really important is that we're clear about where our integrity sits. What is our mission? What is our purpose? What are we trying to build for the future? And, there are things that we can do today. There are things designers can do today that literally 5 months ago, you couldn't do. That is how quickly things are changing. So if we don't make sure that we're really focused on, we will constantly be willing to reinvent who we are and help our clients reinvent who they are. If we're not able to do that, we're not going to be relevant. We're not going to be relevant today or tomorrow. And that is where, that's, I would say, the positioning that I try and take as I look forward.
Fantastic. Ndidi, I could talk to you for another half an hour, clearly, or another hour, in fact, longer about all of this, but we have to wrap it up. I cannot wait for the journey ahead for Song and you at the helm across the next 5 years, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.